We're here at the second annual Bioproducts Cluster Workshop with Dr. Murray McLaughlin, the president of Bioindustrial Innovation Canada. Murray, what is a bioproducts cluster?
What is a bioproducts cluster? You ask me tough questions, but anyway, bioproducts clusters basically are where you've got a group of people coming together, a group of industries coming together around, that whole area of the bioindustrial, biomaterial, biomass, and building new companies. So, but you've got also the infrastructure behind it. You've got fabricating companies, you've got educational capabilities, you've got research capabilities. All of those things kind of coalesce around. And then you got all the delivery things. If you look at biomass, you've got the ability for farmers out there to become part of that by forming a co-op and delivering biomass out to the companies that are going to process that biomass. So those are all ingredients that create a cluster. The biggest ingredient, though, is people. You've got to have people that really believe they can do it and get out there and do it. And that's, of course, one of the benefits of the Sarnia region. They've had that real great building experience over the last 10 years of creating that bioindustrial cluster there in Sarnia.
What specifically is this workshop about focusing on?
This workshop here this year, we really focus around biomass because we think that becomes one of the real feedstocks or ingredients to build the bioindustrial sector, and you need to have that biomass to convert to sugars and then on to chemicals, and then the chemicals, of course, go out into industrial uses of all sorts. It could be food uses, it could be auto uses, it could be pretty well anything you can think of where we use plastics or chemicals today. We can take bio-based chemistries and put into that use. So that's really the point here, is understanding what can we be doing with biomass and what's the benefit of biomass and where can we access it, the cost of it and everything else. So it's a group of people that have come together that really see biomass as important for the future and just educating and getting better understanding around it. So that's the purpose of this conference today.
Building a value chain, the conversation comes up repeatedly. What does that involve?
Building a value chain, and it's going to vary from concept to concept. I mean, any industry really starts with a value chain, because you start at the beginning to create a product and you go all the way through to end users that are going to consume whatever you end up getting made at the end. And there's numbers of steps in between. But let's just look at biomass as an example, getting biomass to sugar. You've got basically the farming community. Farmers have to grow corn or wheat, and then you get the wheat straw and you get the corn stover, but you have to harvest that. You have to aggregate it, put it all together. You have to transport it into a facility that's going to take it, grind it up, and process it through the mill to make a sugar. Then they're going to have somebody buy that sugar to make that, and that sugar would then get converted to chemicals, and then those chemicals would move on and get converted to probably, let's say, a plastics of some sort, and then from there to maybe an automobile, and then out to consumers. That's a whole value chain, and it's how you aggregate all of those pieces so everything flows seamlessly from one end to the other.
Sarnia has benefited from developing a cluster. You now have connections in Alberta. Is that the next step?
Well, there's a number of steps. I mean, certainly Alberta we've been working with for a number of years. They're interested in the kind of things we've been doing in Sarnia and how can they do some of that there. But I think also we're working very closely with Southern Ontario and looking at where else is there cluster opportunities around Southern Ontario. I can name at least 6 locations probably right now that would be potential cluster opportunities in Southern Ontario. And then we're also working with Northern Ontario and the forestry industry, because there's real interest in cluster development up there in places like Thunder Bay or Sault Ste. Marie. So a number of areas where there's cluster opportunities, and part of what our direction will be where we get funding from as well. So, but certainly Alberta we've been working with for probably 5 or 6 years. They're quite interested in biomass conversion, so and they did support one of the projects we recently did. But again, the bulk of our support these days comes from Ontario, so we will continue to focus with cluster development in Ontario as well as reaching out across the country. I think it's important that we have a national focus on this whole area of bioindustrial, and somebody has to do it. So I look at it and say, nobody else is doing that reach out, so we're going to do that.
Do you think that the public generally is seeing the benefit of a cluster?
If they live in a cluster, I think they do. I think people in Sarnia are now starting to see it because there's some reality there. You've got BioAmber, you've got Comet announced their sugar mill, you've got this farm co-op that's coming together to collect biomass, and we've got the research park that's 95% capacity. So the people in Sarnia now are seeing and starting to realize that this can be real. I mean, it's been 10, 12 years since the idea started, but it takes a long time to get to that, and it's going to continue to grow. I mean, if you ignore a cluster, it'll fail. So you have to continue to work at it and continue to find new businesses to keep building it. But Sarnia definitely is well on the track of being, and is starting to get recognized nationally and internationally and around the world as a bioindustrial cluster today.